All right, folks at home, can you hear?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, I can hear.
Excellent. Good. I think we have almost more people on the line than we do here in person, which is a great mix of technology. The topic today is crowdsourcing, and at first I just want to thank you guys all for coming to a lot of these sessions. This helps us wrap up our social media strategy for the fall, and we had a very ambitious goal in August to set out several things that we needed accomplished by the end of the year, and this is our second to the last thing on that checklist. There's one more I think we need to do, and then we'll have everything accomplished. So thanks for coming, for giving your time, and hopefully we've made it worthwhile. But if you have any interest in any of these one-on-one or any future topics for any sessions, let us know, because we might, as the social media working group, or at least half of the social media working group, we might get hit up to do another group of sessions next year or something like that. And it's also nice to come back because the tips that we pick up over the years are interesting, and also the tools change, so there's always something new. And I don't know about you, but if you're using Facebook and you kind of feel like you've moved on to Twitter, or maybe your evolution has been to something else, maybe now you're listening now. It'll be interesting to see what 2014 comes up with. But for now, we're going to talk about crowdsourcing, and it's something that we all do, and I think when we started doing this, we would look to somebody else and say, could you help me find people who talked about this? And then somebody would write up a little short piece, and we would put it in the paper and hope people come. There are a lot of ways to do that now, and some of them we started doing, and there's some others out there that we do that, I think. But to start off, I just wanted to say that this quote that's up here on the screen is one that I found in reading a book on mobile design, and the talk was about how getting people to fill out forms and different things. And I think that it really speaks to our topic here today, because if you just, all right, Yaron is in. If you ask people, for instance, on Facebook, and you ask them to guide you, you're obviously over here, you know, in this virtual room, asking people to go over to a different virtual room and do something for you. And that's a big ask, to get people to jump across platforms like that. And I think that we've learned in doing social media and getting people to respond that the easiest thing to do by far is to find people where they are and ask them to do something very simple. So if you're emailing them, ask them to reply back. If you're Facebooking, ask them to just leave a comment. If they're on the story, ask them to leave a comment. If you're on Twitter, ask them to tweet back at you. One of the things that we've tried doing, at least the past year and a half, was getting people to play along with little contests that we've had. And some of our tricks have been, send us a photo of you doing this, and send us a video of you doing this. And those are pretty heavy lifts, and some people will play along with those. But as soon as you put out a contest and say, just share this on your own wall, the easiest thing to do for people is to hit that one button, and the participation was just through the roof. So I think it goes a lot toward this quote here, which is how you ask people for their input goes a long way toward determining what kind of answers you'll get. How you ask them determines how many answers you'll get. So we're going to talk about some different tips, tricks, and all kinds of things as we go along. And if you've done something of your own that's worked very, very well, don't be afraid during the session, if you're on the phone or you're here, to jump in and share something that you've done that works, because there's a lot that's out there. And I think one of the most effective ways in calling out and asking people to contribute to your reporting in some way is to do it yourself from your own account. And then you get that relationship with people, and people understand who's asking, as opposed to the nameless, faceless Lohud. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian, And he's going to walk you through some of his tips and tricks.
I'm standing behind you because it reminds me to talk towards the phone, so I have a tendency to wander and not project, so let me know if you don't hear too well. Crowdsourcing, my experience with crowdsourcing for the most part in the last couple of years has been on the end of helping you guys get your crowdsources up, usually 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning if we're lucky, putting something on Facebook for the day, the Lohud Facebook page, and asking people. And the ideal crowdsource result is that you get somebody who contacts you well enough before deadline, who's willing to be interviewed, who you can actually speak to in person. And you've probably been as frustrated as I am, although I'm not usually on the end of it where you actually see what the result is, just not finding people are kind of flops. You throw it out there and it's a dead silence and you don't really hear from people. So what I tried to do was to look at all the different ways to kind of attack it, kind of hedge our bets and try different angles and different avenues. And probably the most important thing that I came away with early in the process. Noon on the day that you had your stories due to be filed is not the time to be doing it. But when you have an instance, say like the Metro North crash, you don't have a lot of advance notice on breaking news, something like that. But it's also a regional interest. You can still do pretty well. Like people did reach out to us on that one. We could do a call out to readers to anybody who was there or something was on the trains, that kind of thing. But for the most part, you want to plan days, maybe weeks in advance. Knowing your topics, knowing the stories that you're working on. When you have a long term, use that time to your best. And I also suggest taking more of a tiered approach. Locally, as far as social media, start with your own followings. And I think this works really well, especially now that we're kind of like a more of a topical basis as far as what we cover, that we have expertise. And your followers are probably following you for your expertise. Like say Gary tweets something out, you're hitting a lot of people who are already following you because they have a predisposed to be interested in education topics, and they're not just the random public. They're not a municipal following who you happen to cover a certain carved out geographic area. They're following you for a certain reason, so when you ask questions, they're kind of pre-set up to respond. So if you're looking for sources on a story, start with your own followings, and you repeat it on Twitter, repeat it on Facebook, repeat it again on Twitter because you have the latitude to do that. If you just start on the Lohud Facebook page, you're limited to maybe one post early in the day if you can, if you even know about it, and you don't really kind of get to go back at that. Another advantage of starting with your own followings is you can tweak it. You can see what worked. You can put it up again. You can kind of talk to your followers who have certain expectations that they're not going to be as annoyed that you're coming back with the same questions. If let's say you get the source you need early in the day or early in the week on a story, you want to take it to another angle. The example I think of is Marcella was writing about people shopping on Thanksgiving. And I think she was pretty quickly able to find people who were outraged at the idea. I thought this was ridiculous. And Kim went to tell the whole world how awful that is. I think she had to look a little harder for people who were going to be out there, like my wife who was shopping at 8 o'clock on Thanksgiving night. So if you have the time, and she took the time, she's able to go back at it and hit it again and hit up her own followers. She did something also that I recommend is hit up her coworkers. When somebody comes to me with a social, to do a social call out on Facebook and Twitter, I'll often do a social alert, send it out to the staff. Please, echo this. I think I did it today with Teresa's on. If you can remember what the second bridge traffic. Excuse me. And we can go there. That's really good when you really want to hit it hard and kind of hit as many people as possible. You're just doing the widest possible call out. We can definitely do that. You want to use your colleagues. Another way to think of it though is to think of the colleagues in the room who have specific followings who might help your crowdsource. And one example I gave last week was, let's say you were writing about a municipal parking problem in downtown Peekskill near they have Restaurant Row. You might hit up Small Bites because they have people who may frequent that. Maybe you can get something up on the blog there. Maybe she can tweet out your call out for you. And you're not hitting the whole world. Maybe you're hitting kind of a and how well this is going to work specifically, you really got to think about the specific crowdsource that you're doing and how best you can kind of fine-tune it in terms of the people you want to reach. One thing I would note is that, we also do put call-outs up on Lohud.com. It's a really simple thing. I think the reporters in the room were doing that before I ever thought to do it. Start a Newsgate file and put it in there and send a note to digital that it exists. We'll put a link on the homepage. It's a really easy thing to do, but it might not occur to everybody. So I know not everybody does it, so I just want to make sure I mention that that's an option to you. Use the blogs. I mentioned Small Bites being one. You use the commuter blog. People often put up a post there and then ask us to link to it on the homepage. but use the blogs to talk to the readers of those blogs. That's a readership that's already predisposed to hear from you about things and maybe to answer you about things. You're not having to sell them on the topic, which I'm off. When I write a Facebook crowdsource, I'm trying to think, how do I make this as convincing as possible to somebody to respond to me? First of all, you want to make it easier. You want to ask them in a way that that's going to make it easy for them to respond. But if they're already kind of predisposed to this topic they've already have an interest in, they're more likely to answer you. So you got to look at the different outlets that we have within our site that you can kind of reach out to them. One fun thing that we've been doing, we did it with Ken's holiday parking etiquette story, was we can create these Google Forms, and I'm going to turn this over to Anjanette, but we put that out there, and he started about 3 weeks in advance before the story. It didn't get a great response, and there's no guarantee with these things, but it's a very user-friendly and mobile-friendly way to kind of reach out. So if you want to jump in and kind of explain how that works, I'd like to see more of that, because it has a lot of promise.
I think that the trick with this is I like to use the Google Forms when you are, let me see. I like to use the forms when you really want somebody to give you a more thoughtful answer. So you want them to write a little bit. Or the other thing is when you want somebody to give an answer to something that you feel they won't be comfortable saying publicly. So let's say you're asking for people, we did a call out on healthcare, and let's say you're asking for people to talk to you on, some medical treatment that they had. You as a reporter would treat their answer very delicately when you got it, and you would respect certain aspects of their confidentiality. And I think when you're looking at a Google form, it's a great way to say, you can tell me your story, and then we will discuss how to, how and whether to use it in the Journal News or Lohud.com. But just you telling me your story like you would on Facebook or Twitter, where everybody can see what you just wrote, that's not going to happen with Google Forms. So that's another way to do it. So let me tell you what I'm talking about when I say Google Form. Does everybody use Google Drive, or have you at least seen it?
No.
Very easy to sign up for it. If you have Gmail, it's even easier, but just go in and start Googling Google Drive. It's a cloud storage for different documents. So think of it like Microsoft Office, but online. You can do a spreadsheet like you would do with Excel. You can do a text document like you would do with Microsoft Word. You can do all sorts of different things, and then it's all stored up here. And then you can share it with other people who also have a Google Drive. So I can write a letter, and I really would like Brian to look this over before I send it. I can just share it with Brian virtually on Google Drive. He can take a look at it. He can type in some of his notes. So it's a great way to collaborate as well. But I would encourage you to check out Google Drive, because then you can go over here to create. And you have options. So when you hit create, you have options of creating a document like a Word file, presentation like PowerPoint, spreadsheet like Excel, and in this case you would choose form.
We would do this with you, by the way, so we wouldn't like put it together.
Yeah, you choose your basic default form, and you can start building your questions. And I'll show you one of these that I've done. So if you can see this, let me make it a little bit larger. We asked people, this was back when I was working in opinion, and we asked people to give us their ideas for fixing the East Ramapo School District. And this came about because every time we would write about the East Ramapo School District, somebody would say, they should do this. And then somebody else would say they should do this. And everybody had an idea for fixing it, and we thought, well, what if we take everyone's idea for fixing it and we pair that with our own answer? And our own answer being, here's why legally you can't do that. Here's why this would be a particular hurdle. Here's why this one might work. In opinion, we were able to give a little bit of analysis in there. So we asked people to send us their ideas for East Ramapo. And we started out we said, back. So we said, tell us if you're a parent or a taxpayer or a school district employee, and we were able to create other as well if you're something else. Tell us how you'd fix it. And then we asked people to give their name. And so once you've built this form, then you have an option up here when you see this blue button top right, send form. It'll give you some code. You can take it back to our website and make a story file out of it. And so then you've got this on your website. And you can write a little, a really nice 4-inch introduction if you'd like, and explain what your topic is and fill out our form. You can, you also have a link that's right here on Google. You can share that with people. You can ask people who are on your beat list if they will go ahead and embed the form on their website. Somebody's interested in East Ramapo, go ahead, embed it. Yeah? You put it in. You wouldn't go in Newsgate because it's code. So at that point, if you're not able to work in Saxotech, you would come and bring your code. You can probably say, let's build this. You know how you can probably put it on blog. Yeah, they work very well on the blog. So you've built your form, you've written your little introduction, your story, you've got it up on Lohud.com. And how do you work with it? Well, the beauty is there's a button where you tell Google that you want it to come out in a spreadsheet. And Google builds the spreadsheet for you. This one's a bit daunting because people really have things to say. But Google makes this spreadsheet and it creates a column for every question that you asked. So where you asked your name, it creates a column for the name. You ask for an email or phone number, it creates a column. So you see all of this here? And then I've set this to private, and I shared it with Nancy and with Herb, and the three of us were able to take a look at this and watch as the answers started coming in. And then if I wanted to, let's say I wanted to make another column at the end, column F, I could type notes at the top, and then I could, Nancy could go in and say, I called this guy yesterday, he's on my list. Herb could go in and say, this is the guy I called. So you can really work with this behind the scenes and share with other reporters if you're working on this project together. So this might be something in the case of, say, you have a story you want to work with and you want to build sources, you might team up with somebody like Brian or somebody like me, and we'd help you build the form, and then we'd help you work with the spreadsheet on the back end for answers. And in this case, to Brian's point about starting early, we had this going for a few weeks, and we kept bringing it back out on the website and asking people in print to go check it out. People on Facebook were sharing the link with their friends, anybody who wanted to. At the end of a story on East Ramapo, we plug in a little link saying, please go fill out our survey. So we did it for quite a while, but we were able to get quite a few answers. Other things we've used this for, health exchange.
Okay.
Do you have health insurance? What's your first name? Where do you live? Why would you be using New York's healthcare exchange? Again, a sensitive topic. You might not want to post on Facebook if we asked you on Facebook. And we've done it for other different things, Sandy, different things. Mm-hmm. Is that where all the people are coming from? We've gotten 50 that way, yeah. Uh-huh. And again, start early, really put that out there. Ask other people to host your forum on their site or at least link to it. I mean, the more you can do, I think, to use your network out there. Ask somebody else to share the link on their Facebook page. Social media is kind of like this beast that you feel you might have to feed. Well, there are other people out there that are sources of yours that also feel like they have a social media feed to feed as well. So they might be happy to spread the word for you. And so I would say do that as well. We also did it to call out for endorsements for the Westchester County, Rockland County executive. We'll did it that way. So that's another tool out there. There's Twitter, there's Facebook, hashtags, and different things like that. I'm going to kick it back to Brian unless you guys have questions about these forums.
Put tweets out. Yeah. We got a couple other tools that I can show you, and that you may or may not be familiar with. I would just say, just in starting early and often, don't
Remember
make...
your mic.
Oh, yeah. Project. Don't make the time that you need help on a story or looking for sources be the first time you engage with people and ask them for something or talk to them at all. This is where social engagement becomes very valuable to you. Talk to the people in your social following, particularly experts, the people who seem knowledgeable, the people who seem not insane, that you want to cultivate as, people who know you and can rely on you and realize that you're not insane or reliable. And also look for those people in your following who you can ask for help. If you want to get the word out, if you're looking for certain types of people who are affected by knowledge, you can broadcast it through other we had a volunteer-related story, volunteer center, and food bank to help spread the word on whether we're getting out there. Think outside the box. We have this Elf on the Shelf story, and we asked people to share their Elf on the Shelf pictures, but then I went in, people posted that this might have been. I actually had people willing to call me back right away, and I think to call you is kind of a big cases. And, Twitter lists, what this kind of sets up. I don't know how many of you are familiar with or use Twitter lists. Anybody? Kind of once you tag it kind of opens up Twitter like in a tweet way that I think you might not expect. And what we're seeing just now is TweetDeck, which is a tool of managing different lists and different columns of people you can follow. As opposed to when you go to twitter.com, you get one column. TweetDeck gives you almost infinite columns. Lists are people you curate on Twitter. Do it by category, as far as the Lohud has. You guys are all on this one, new staff at Lohud. That's how I know to retweet when Gary gets on in the morning at an education meeting. I can retweet it because I see it on the new staff list. So we probably spend a whole other session talking about just TweetDeck and lists, but I definitely recommend you explore it. And if you want to hit me up, we can probably do that in the spring or in the winter. Training one-on-one.
Let's skip the link there.
This is another thing that a way of breaking out a group of people who are you curate within Facebook. You post to a group, it shows up in your newsfeed like anything else, but people are invited to join the group. You make it as private or as public as you like, and it gives you a place to discuss things openly, to share documents, to share ideas. And like I said, you can make it a public thing, you can make it a private thing within Facebook. So only kind of keep it to yourselves if you'd like, or you can make it a public discussion that if other people want to join.
Have you guys used Facebook groups?
Kind of simple. There's a link on there, you can go explore it, but getting started is very simple.
What? Family reunion. That's a great example, because I think using them for friends, your house with your family, and stuff like that is a great way to get familiar with it. And you can take that same idea and find people that are, say, interested in your beat, interested in a particular story, and invite them into a group where you guys can talk about it.
You're not in a group for all the social media people within the company. And like I say, it just shows up in my newsfeed when somebody posts to it. So it's not a truth to it. It doesn't do it. My Facebooking, they post something, there's just one more post there. But the people who are posting to it I know are kind of solid. I know what they're talking about, and I'm interested in what they have to say. So does anyone follow ProPublica? They were doing this this ongoing project on medical mistakes. They wanted people to talk to them about their own experiences with medical mistakes. And it's one of those, again, the touchy subject, like who's going to say, yes, this happened to me, quite publicly. But they created a Facebook, and they allowed anybody who wanted to join, they just brought, they were doing this group. And if you want to talk about
medical mistakes, come on in. They let anybody in who wanted in, and if you started, doing bad things, posting offensive things, they would kick you out of the group. But for the most part, they got patients, they got doctors, they got, just interested parties, people willing to talk about it. They built sources that way. They had people to feature in full-on profiles. And then when they did another story in their series on the same topic, they had an audience right there, and so they would put the link in that group and say, here's the latest, and you guys helped us come up with ideas for this. So it's a ready-made way of really building up your base, I think.
I'm not good advice. You got anything?
Well, I was just going to share a couple of success stories, and I think anyone who knows me will not find it surprising that I treat social media kind of like a cocktail party. I think that you talk to people a lot and often, and you can make small talk with them and chat about different things, and then you sort of have made friends with them, and then the time comes when you need something, you can ask them, and they will help. And that's sort of what happens with these two hashtags in particular, the Lohud food hashtag and the Manhattan Project hashtag, which that one does have some atomic tweets coming in on it, but we've been using cocktail recipes, and here's one that Jill is contributing, but it's not just Jill and Ed, it's other people, like restaurants and stuff. And I wanted to just point out that we also are trying to really capitalize on this Lohud food hashtag, and restaurants have started to use it. Here's Zupa and Pulpatina. A lot of the times it's me and Megan, but here's, Benjamin Steakhouse, things like that. These other restaurants are picking up on it, and we're trying to build a community around that one word, that then when it comes time to ask for something, to say, who knows which restaurants are serving Brussels sprouts for Christmas, and you put it out there with using Lohud food, you've got all these people who already check that list, that even though it's not a real list, that hashtag, they search for it, and they see who's posting on it. And that's sort of the advice of repeat, and post early and post often. Because if you just keep up the conversation, no matter what you're talking about, once you have built that relationship with people, then you can turn to them and say, hey, what about this? And just ask a question like you would in a normal conversation. Success. Any other success? You're talking about Vin.
Yeah, Vin Mercogliano in sports put up Player of the Year, was it, for a poll?
Yes.
He got 2,500 responses because everybody on sports really, he's just a good example of they cultivate their Twitter following so that Lohud soccer or Lohud girls field hockey has tremendously passionate and pretty sizable followings, and they'll respond to something like that when he puts it out. But you can follow this during the day. It goes up several times, and they ask, and people are very responsive to that. So they've kind of laid the groundwork, and they're very consistent about it. That helps a lot.
And these columns in TweetDeck that I have set up, I mean, you can check out any columns that you want and look for people maybe who you don't even follow. Like in our last session, we were showing for an example of gardening for Bill. If he keeps an eye on this, he might find someone that he can strike up a conversation with, and then that person, that's another way to build following. And then also to just check your notifications, because if you see if someone, it's polite to respond back, and that's the same etiquette as in real life. So if someone says something to you, talk back to them, and that's the way that someone has said something to you. If you have these columns where you can get a notification and see someone's mentioned you.
It's also useful when you build up your following and you've got this kind of rapport with the people who are following you on Facebook and Twitter, that you can ask questions that might seem random otherwise, and we all think of a crowdsource as, I need to find 5 people who call me on the phone today before deadline so I can get them into the paper. But sometimes you just want to crowdsource, what's new in this area. It's very small. Brussels sprouts is a big thing. I don't know what the equivalent of question is, but you can kind of go to the well a little more often, and you can be more conversational about it, where you don't necessarily need a source on record for a story, but you're more likely to get a source on record for a story if you've talked to these people before and you've reached out to them and gone back and forth with you a little bit.
A couple of other success stories. You guys remember Alex Weidler? I mean, I'll stand behind him any day on social media because the things he uses it to do are just tremendous. when Sandy hit last year, he would tell people where he was going. He said, okay, I'm leaving the office, and I'm heading over to North Castle. You know, what do you guys want me to check out? And it was fantastic. People were tweeting back at him, you know, would you drive by this and tell me if it's open? And he would. I mean, it was just a very useful way. And he did that so much and so often through Sandy that when he finally took a day off and he told people on Twitter that I'm off tomorrow, I saw those on Twitter saying, oh no, what are we going to do tomorrow? Alex is off. You know, is anybody else going to be able to help us figure out what's going on in this community? So he really, I think by helping people out that way, by answering back, he built a real loyal following that was ready to help him. We did a lot of those things during Sandy with the Lohud account. Somebody would tweet at us and say, I really need D batteries, and I can't find any. And you guys remember, you want to drive because you lose your gas and it's desperate finding any gas. And so somebody wanted to find D batteries, and you use the Twitter account and put it back out there. Does anybody know where you can find D batteries? And 3 people jump back and tell you where you can find D batteries, and then you've helped somebody out. And it might look a little weird as journalism in some ways, but you've really helped connect people with the information they were looking for. And in a situation like Sandy, you know, the information may not be, you know, the super highbrow information. It might just simply be, where can I get gas, or where can I find batteries? And throwing that back out there, we crowdsourced a lot of that. Where can you get this? Is anybody near this gas station? Can you tell us if it's open? Worked a lot. Going back to Vince, he did something Brian mentioned with the Player of the Year. He has great returns. Like that guy does anything and people just respond to him. He holds a chat that he plans to hold for an hour, and it goes for 2 hours. But he's learned some tricks along the way. He started years ago with his hashtag, so he's really been pushing that for a while. And the other thing he does is he hosts a chat on the night that he releases some big bombshell on his blog. So he already has people worked up and ready to talk. And so when he finally goes to talk to them, they're ready. And so I like that. He has a lot of success getting people to respond, like Brian was saying, with 2,500 full answers. He says, help me decide the Player of the Year. Tell me who I should pick. Does it in a very interesting way, and he gets 2,500 people helping him out again. So people to watch things. Yes, yeah. Absolutely. That's an ideal one. Yeah. I mean,
sports teams easy because people are passionate about the particular sport, especially if they're on the team or the kids on the team, but it does help to look for the parallel, look for what's going to make people passionate to respond. Like, we're passionate about Common Core right now. They're passionate about, you know.
That's perfectly so. Definitely do that.
Does anybody have any questions, especially on, I don't know, last time we had a lot of questions on TweetDeck, but maybe you guys all know how to use it pretty well.
I really encourage everybody to give it a try. Twitter's a lot more fun than TweetDeck is. If it seems pointless.
It's super, just all you really do is use this little plus button, and then you can search however you want. You can search for a word, you can search for a person, you can search for a hashtag, you can put all these things are available for your columns. You just fill it in, and then you just click Add Column, and that's it. Then you just watch as they file in.
One last thing before we cut out, and looks like we're going to get out early today, which is nice. Just a final plug for the social media contest. It's a quarterly contest, and we're coming to the end of our first quarter of this. We promise there will be prizes. Oops, sorry. Oh, that's beautiful. The one contest that is not, the one piece of the contest that's not open to your nominations is the most social story, and that's going to just simply be judged by the traffic back to your story from Facebook, from Twitter. So it's all the work you did to spread the news about your story on social media resulted in traffic. So that's going to be purely by the numbers judged by Sharpie. So they'll tell us who actually came back with the most social story of the last 3 months. And we hope that the prize for that goes to we expect the prize for that goes to the editor on the story, the reporter on the story, and the visuals person on the story. And there'll be lunch over in the executive dining room.
Reporters hate that.
Yes.
Like that.
Well, coffee and things in the out in the atrium as well. And the rest of them, though, are categories that you can nominate yourself for or your colleagues for. So please do. Please get in, take a look at somebody's Twitter feed and put them in for something. Best use of Twitter, best use of Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, most creative use of social, and any tips you've gotten through social media. Story tips, source tips, anything like that. Please do get in your last-minute nominations. Try and get them in by Thursday, Friday.
Friday?
Well, it's through the 20th.
Friday's the 20th.
There we go.
Let's try to push it. That would give me Friday. Early Friday.
So please do at least drop somebody's name in, and we're going to change up the categories each quarter, try and have a little fun with this, and there will be prizes.
There will be prizes.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.